And a very happy Monday to you at 12:07 in the West. Talk Radio 790 KABC, The John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wangs in Culver City.
John, this morning, L.A. Mayor Karen Bass held a press conference with the police chief to say that crime is down in Los Angeles. And she was asked by Spectrum News, of all organizations, if this announcement will affect the recall attempt against her.
Parker with Spectrum News. So in light of the analysis you're announcing today, these latest crime statistics, how do you think that might affect any potential recall effort down the road?
Well, let me just say that my focus is on keeping the city safe, and my focus is making sure that we rebuild and recover in the Palisades area and that people can return home as fast as possible. My focus is on my job, and it'll continue to do that.
How many focuses does she have?
Apparently a lot.
I've never heard anyone say my focus 3 times in a 20-second answer.
Usually, if you get something with machine gun fire, it is accountability.
Accountability.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Whenever we sign off on a Friday and enjoy ourselves over the weekend and clock back in at the plant on Monday, we always look at the email before we do that, because every so often there's a story that appears in our email box sent to us by you, the listeners. It appears over and over and over again, meaning we know that there's a story that caught your eye, that's top of mind, that you want us to talk about when we sign back on the radio. And Randy, this weekend, that was no different.
And it was specifically about California's insurance commissioner, Ricardo Lara.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
We talked about Ricardo Lara last week because he tentatively approved State Farm's emergency rate hike request. He also missed a hearing for the Department of Insurance at the state capitol. And we found out that when he approved that rate hike and also wrote a piece in the San Francisco Chronicle of why he approved that rate hike, the reason he wasn't in Sacramento to do that hearing was that he's been in Bermuda for a week.
And he's not just there on a kayak. He's in Bermuda with insurance executives.
Getting wined, getting dined, and selling off the state's interests one drink at a time.
And it wasn't something that just popped up on the calendar out of nowhere. This appearance in Bermuda had been on the calendar for quite some time.
And yet the California legislature scheduled a hearing that he was supposed to appear at, so they either didn't check the calendar or they scheduled this hearing knowing that it's going to be better if you don't hear from Ricardo Lara.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
And this is the alleged oversight that the legislature is supposed to provide to make sure that consumers have a good reason for seeing their rates go up.
Now you might be wondering, who broke the story that Ricardo Lara was in Bermuda? Well, yes, of course. It's the best in the business. Sacramento, KCRA 3, Ashley Zavala time.
We were curious, where is Ricardo Lara during all of this? Capitol correspondent Ashley Zavala continues our team coverage with what she has learned.
Well, Curtis, tonight we're learning California Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara has been in Bermuda this week for a conference.
A lot of work getting done at that conference.
Of all the places to go, at least when Karen Bass skipped town during a crisis, she went to Ghana. She went to Africa for an inauguration for a president. Where does Ricardo Lara go? He goes to a destination that made the song Kokomo.
With the insurance industry. It's not clear if he's even back yet. We've reached out to his office.
It's an extended stay, probably on our dime.
Well, you can't tell because he never returns anyone's emails or calls anyway.
You know, the state's in a massive crisis, not just with the insurance crisis, but of course, still recovering from the fires in Southern California. And Ricardo Lara is on a working vacation in Bermuda to cozy up to those insurance companies.
I'd love to know what hotel they're staying at, because my guess is it doesn't involve Tom Bodette.
It's not clear if he's even back yet. We've reached out to his office several times over the last couple of hours, and we can't get a response. Now, according to Bermuda Insurance Magazine, Ricardo Lara was at this conference that ran from March 10th through the...
There's a Bermuda Insurance Magazine?
Oh, that has got to be a front for something else.
What exactly was the critical information that Ricardo Lara was going to bring to this conference of insurance executives?
How many people live on Bermuda? Do we know?
Well, we can find out. I got to type it into the Google. How many people live in Bermuda? 64,000.
Okay, 64,000 people. That's about the size of what? Palm Desert?
It's pretty small.
Okay. 64,000 people live in Bermuda. There are major American cities like Seattle and New Orleans. I don't think they have 7-day-a-week newspaper service. You're trying to tell me that an island of 64,000 people has enough readers to justify a magazine specifically dedicated to the subject of insurance on that island?
They have a website, BermudaInsuranceMagazine.com.
How do they stay in business? How does any magazine stay in business these days? But specifically, one that appeals to the insurance market in Bermuda?
Well, because it's not a real magazine. What this is a PR wing of the insurance industry.
Yeah, right. I bet you they have all kinds of ads in the back for dirty massages.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
According to Bermuda Insurance Magazine, Ricardo Lara was at this conference that ran from March 10th through the 12th. This was apparently the...
But they still don't know if he's back, and now it's the 17th.
Wait, I thought she said he was gone for a full week.
Well, that's when the conference was, but he may have stayed in Bermuda a little longer. Got to catch some sun.
Okay. I'd like to see how he wrote this one off on his taxes.
This was apparently the scheduling conflict that kept him from testifying at this hearing in the state Senate on Wednesday.
And Zavala covered that hearing. It was bizarre because there was no one from the insurance department there to talk, and they went through the meeting like they were just going through the motions to say we had a meeting.
Yeah, they were just checking a box, and they wanted to make sure that he wasn't there, because if he was there, they would have had to have grilled him, and they don't want to do that, so they just made sure to coordinate their schedule, so they scheduled the meeting when he was out of town.
It was the first hearing at the state capitol on the state's insurance.
It's a funny thing, right? Nobody has confidence that he's doing anything that's helping Californians, but nobody wants to take that responsibility to do anything to help Californians on this issue either, so they kick it to this jackass.
No, they have let this problem fester for so long. To be fair and to be honest, there are no good answers. Whatever you do at this point to fix this, it's going to involve a whole bunch of things that people aren't going to like. But that's their own making. That's their own doing. They were the ones that did this to us. And so now, because he's termed out, they are perfectly happy to give it to him and for everyone else just to stand by and be idle. Well, in theory, the legislature is supposed to provide oversight to things like rate hike increases. So in order to fulfill their obligation, they're just playing kabuki. They're just going through the motions, and they're making sure that they quote-unquote do it while he's gone.
It was the first hearing at the state capitol on the state's insurance crisis after those Los Angeles wildfires. His office...
Kind of an important meeting, but not to members of the legislature or Ricardo Lara.
Nope.
His office was not forthcoming about this publicly in the hearing, and his spokesman, Michael Soller, did not mention Bermuda at all when we reached out for more details that day.
Why wouldn't they be open and upfront about that? If it's such an important conference that he's being paid with your tax dollars to go there.
Oh, sure. You notice they never have these conferences in Detroit. It's always Bermuda, Maui, Key Biscayne.
Do you remember, I mean, we're coming up on 5 years now, but at the beginning of all the COVID lockdowns, weren't there a whole bunch of Sacramento legislators that went to some fancy conference in Hawaii?
Oh, yeah. Never Minot, North Dakota. Always in some place that has surf and sand.
Lara had been scheduled to headline that conference since late February. We've asked...
He was the headliner?
Well, who was playing the lounge then?
Well, I guess if you're going to butter Ricardo Lara up so he'll give you everything that you want and more as an industry, yeah, you say you're going to headline our conference, buddy. We're going to give you as much drink as you want, as much food as you want, and as much, well, whatever else you'd like in Bermuda, we'll make sure you get it.
So I have been to a few of these, not for the insurance industry. My dad was in the tire industry, and they would have these junkets, and they would have politicians, and they would have dignitaries who would be there. And they would always have some former athlete or some stand-up comedian who would give a motivational speech at some point. One of the ones who used to do it all the time was one Orenthal James Simpson. He made a lot of money doing that.
What's going on, America?
Then Nicole took it.
I wonder who the motivational speaker was at this conference. I bet you whoever it is, it's completely hilarious.
We've asked the lawmaker in charge of Wednesday's hearing, State Senator Susan Rubio and Senate President Pro Tem Mike McGuire, why they would schedule this hearing while he's in Bermuda, or if they even knew. No one is yet responding tonight. Back to you.
Boy, that's just a cavalcade of incredibly incompetent people in Sacramento.
Okay. Because many of these names are anonymous people, or at least mostly anonymous people to the general public at large, the names mean nothing to anyone. So I think it's time, Randy, that we break it down and explain who these players are. Because once you understand who the players are, you understand why they did what they did.
Let's do it.
Okay. Ricardo Lara is the insurance commissioner. He is in a second term. He is termed out, and he either has to run for some other office, which right now is looking unlikely, or he has to cash in with the insurance industry. He's going to go be an insurance industry executive. He's going to be a lobbyist that works for the insurance industry. Whatever the case may be, that gives him the best opportunity to make the most money possible, especially if he sells everything out and everyone out on his way out of the office, which is looking like the likely scenario. That's part of the reason why they're all perfectly happy to allow him to be the fall guy. He's the guy taking all the slings and arrows because the governor doesn't want to do it and the legislature doesn't want to do it. So if you have a person who's not going to put their name on the ballot again and who is perfectly happy to go to work for the insurance industry, they are the perfect person to take the fall. So they've all decided that he's going to be the guy in charge of all of these horrible policy changes and rate hikes that are coming down the pike. Then you shift gears and you go to the legislature and you go, okay, why in the world would the legislature be motivated to schedule this hearing when they know it was advertised back in February that he was going to be out of town? Well, Mike McGuire, who is the prune farmer who runs the state Senate, is also a candidate to be the next insurance commissioner. Mike McGuire wants to replace Ricardo Lara, which means he needs to be on the good side of the insurance industry too, which means if he goes out of his way to humiliate Ricardo Lara by putting him in front of a Senate committee and making him and the insurance industry look bad, they are not going to support him for insurance commissioner.
There has been some hogwash.
But if he provides cover for Ricardo Lara by specifically scheduling the oversight committee hearings when they know he's out of town, what the legislature is doing is giving Ricardo Lara and the insurance industry a pass. So then you say to yourself, okay, well, it benefits Mike McGuire because he's running for insurance commissioner, and this would help him get the support of the insurance industry and of the former insurance commissioner. But why is the committee chairman going along? Why is Susan Rubio doing Mike McGuire's bidding? Well, if that name rings a bell, it's because she is being investigated by the FBI for all kinds of illegal activity back when she was on the city council in Pico Rivera or whatever city it was, Baldwin Park, that she came from. Remember that one? She's compromised. She's probably going to prison. And for whatever reason, Mike McGuire, when a member is being investigated by the FBI, usually they're stripped of their committees, particularly if they're chairman, but not her. They kept her on as chairman of the insurance committee because they control her. She's damaged goods. She's not going to ruffle any feathers at this point, so people start talking to the feds when she's probably going to jail anyway. She doesn't need her problems to get worse, because if that's the way she behaved down at the city level, what do you think she's doing in Sacramento? You need to be everyone's best friend so no one talks. So she's the perfect person to put in charge of the insurance committee. Someone you own entirely. And so she's the one that gavels it in. She's the one that gavels it out. She's the one that decides the calendar and the schedule. So the fix was in from the very beginning that Ricardo was going to get a pass and everyone gets what they want. Mike McGuire gets a plum from the insurance industry for doing them a solid. They will then, in turn, help him in his campaign for insurance commissioner. Susan Rubio makes the leadership around her happy with her performance as chairwoman, so they let it be known to everyone in Sacramento they don't want you talking to the feds because the feds are asking about Susan Rubio. Everyone wins, except for California homeowners and California ratepayers, because you are going to get hosed. The reason they're going through this kabuki theater is so the rates can go through the roof and no one gets to ask any questions. And no one looks bad on the news. It just happened. Oh my gosh, global warming's horrible. The fires are horrible. And it's all resulting in rate hike increases. And no conversation about those rate hikes is allowed to happen. That's how it works here. Right now, it's time for KABC Dependable Traffic. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, if you want to go back and listen to Friday's show, where we talked about a lawsuit that resulted in a $50 million judgment against Starbucks for burning someone's crotch, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is go to KABC.com, click on podcast, go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. You can do a Google on the YouTube or get that handy-dandy KABC app. Search KABC AM in the Apple App Store, the Android Store. It's the easiest way to listen live to that radio station and download all the podcasts. If you're specifically listening to that one, don't listen to it while eating.
I was like,
One of our listeners speculated that the name of the barista was Richard Burns.
Just stop right now.
We have not been able to confirm nor deny that. In the meantime, what do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
I couldn't think of a more appropriate giveaway for what we just talked about. 790 KABC welcomes Kids Bop Live, the certified bop tour at the Honda Center on September 20th. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com, but right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-790-5222 gets a 4-pack of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Good luck dialing.
Well, we know the city of Oakland is in danger of electing their own Karen Bass to be the next mayor of that city, but some attack ads are already on the airwaves. We'll find out if those ads are making a difference right now in the race to see who will become Oakland's next mayor. We know that Los Angeles elected a longtime member of Congress, and before that, the state legislature, who had been around forever, was well-liked by most, but had never been an executive, had never run anything before. And after becoming mayor, we figured out real fast that Karen Bass is a complete slow-motion train wreck. In Oakland, voters decided to dump their incompetent mayor, Sheng Tao, in November.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes. And now they'll get to decide who can replace her. One candidate is a lot like Karen Bass, a longtime member of Congress, before that a member of the state legislature, who has decided that her last act in politics should be as mayor of her hometown, Oakland, California. However, you can see that slow-motion train wreck coming from miles and miles away. The question is, will Oakland voters bite?
Quite frankly.
For more on the campaign to replace Sheng Tao, here's KPIX.
We begin in Oakland, where another contentious election cycle is in full swing. Voters will select a new mayor after they recalled Sheng Tao back in November. The special election is April 15th, 1 month from tomorrow, and early voting starts this Monday. 15 people are on the ballot, but 2 have said...
15? I want to meet some of the gadflies.
I'm telling you, when we vote for California's next governor, there might be 40 or 50.
15 people are on the ballot, but 2 have separated themselves from the field, at least on the fundraising front. Longtime Congresswoman Barbara Lee and former city council member Lauren Taylor, who finished second to Tao in the 2022 mayoral race.
It's got to bother him every single day that because of ranked choice voting, 600 votes separated him and Sheng Tao.
Ranked choice voting is a complete disaster, which is one of the reasons why I'm surprised they haven't brought it to L.A. yet.
It's coming.
Okay, so now the campaign rhetoric is heating up big time. Daw Lin spoke with some of the organizers behind Tao's recall, who are now launching a new ad against Lee.
Barbara Lee may be popular in Oakland, but as the frontrunner, the target on her back is getting a lot bigger. Some people are now comparing her to former Mayor Sheng Tao.
By the way, the only reason she is the frontrunner is she has name ID. There's not one thing that she can point to that she would do to save that city.
Yeah, not only was she the long-serving member of Congress from that area, she just ran statewide for U.S. Senate, came in 5th place, if I recall correctly. So she has name ID from that race, too.
If you're from the area, you call it 96 and Sunnyside Park. That's where I grew up at, played basketball, got into fights.
And now this East Oakland native is...
Every Oaklander has just the best stories.
It's not like I learned how to drive over there. I threw my first coin in the fountain over there. This is where I got involved in my first fight. This is where I got bit for the first time. This is where my mailbox exploded.
I wonder if where he used to play basketball, there's still a basketball court.
Oh, my God, they melted the basketball court.
Probably not.
And now this East Oakland native is fighting for his city's future. Fed up with crime and homelessness, Dwayne Tatum volunteered a lot of hours last year to recall Mayor Tao.
This is the most important.
Now he's featured in a new ad urging voters to reject Barbara Lee.
Barbara Lee has no city government experience.
That is true.
Yeah, she was a federal lawmaker and a state lawmaker before that. And before that, she worked for a congressman.
If you look at what happened with Karen Bass, who was also in Congress for a very long time, turns out that just because you were in Congress for a long time in a safe district doesn't mean you know how to run anything.
No!
You know who else had that pedigree who screwed everything up?
Who's that?
Remember Grabby Hands Bob Filner down in San Diego?
Oh, my.
He was a longtime member of Congress, too.
She does not speak for me. We love and respect her.
Oh, that's twisting the knife if they say Barbara Lee does not speak for me.
We love and respect her, but the problems that Oakland face today, we think they're just a little bit too complex.
For someone who's 80?
I think if she was elected and reelected, she'd be close to 90.
For Barbara Lee to be able to come in and really make effective change.
Tatum points out Lee, back in November, urged voters to reject the recall.
There was that.
A lot of people are going to have a lot of hurt feelings over her standing by Sheng.
The bureaucracy is real.
And then Barbara Lee tries to do a heel turn when the indictment comes out, but she already said, no, we got to keep our Shengi. Recalls are evil.
And he said, absolutely.
And keep in mind, if that's your position, then you were also against the recall of Pamela Price.
Quite frankly.
Oh, Bippy. Everyone should subscribe to her podcast. It's the most bitter thing out there.
Which could be hard to do.
He reminds voters many labor unions that previously supported Tao are now backing Lee.
Oh, great.
No, her policies are all the same as Sheng Tao. It's just her race is different, her age is different, and her criminal history is different.
I mean, I would go out on a limb and say her policies are a little loonier than Sheng Tao's. Barbara Lee tried to run for Senate on the campaign of $50 an hour minimum wage.
Yeah, she's out there.
And her mayoral campaign, the one policy proposal I have heard her say in a town hall is, we should have universal basic income for the homeless.
Yeah, that'll solve the problem, just like housing did.
I believe it would be a repeat of Sheng Tao's policy. These are both.
It would be the exact same performance of Sheng Tao without any of the hilarity.
Not a day goes by where I don't wish I could just wave a magic wand and silence the gunfire.
Well, and the other thing, too, is Sheng was all over the local media. She would answer questions. Her answers made no sense, but she would answer questions. If you're a longtime member of Congress, you're relatively anonymous. Those people typically just disappear.
Both very left-leaning progressive politicians.
Recall Oregon.
Yes, another thing that would marry Sheng Tao to Barbara Lee is Barbara Lee keeps talking about that ceasefire program and how successful it is. And what she wants to bolster is the Office of Violence Prevention, which is the life coaches for gang members.
If you were to just look at the text of what they're saying, you couldn't tell the difference.
Well, I don't think Barbara Lee says the magic word.
Absolutely, absolutely.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Jason writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com, listening online in Kansas. They should elect this doofus and see how well she runs the bleep show called Oakland. I miss me some Shangy.
I can get that.
Oh, we all do.
Jason's Shangy's biggest fan.
How are you?
Absolutely good.
Love to shake your hand.
Yes, it's been amazing.
Right now, we're going over all the latest on who will be Oakland's next mayor.
Recall organizers claim Lee doesn't have the right policies to improve public safety.
We're going to be in the same condition.
That's Judge Brenda Harbin Forte.
I love the fact that she's riding Barbara Lee so hard.
We're going to be in the same condition that we would have been in had we not recalled Sheng Tao. And I did not recall Sheng Tao to have Sheng Tao 2.0.
You said it, sister.
And that's exactly what Barbara Lee speaks for me would be.
But Lee supporters dispute that comparison, saying Lee has integrity, experience, and the ability to unite a divided
Wait, didn't she take money from the dongs?
I think she did,
Like
along with everyone else in Oakland.
Like 56 grand going back to 2008?
experience, and the ability to unite a divided city.
The town is hurting, not just in terms of our finances, but how we see ourselves and how we come together.
Actually, it's hurting because of crime.
And Sheng was a big part of it.
We've come through two very divisive election cycles, and I believe that she's a unifying candidate who can bring solutions to the table.
Dr. Lynette McElhaney is a former Oakland councilwoman. She says many moderate Democrats, business owners, and people of all backgrounds are standing behind the progressive leader.
Why?
That would make zero sense.
Oakland is a leader in this region, and we need someone who can sit at the table on transportation, on climate change, and certainly join the legion of strong leaders across the state to push back against the federal dissolution that we see.
That's not the mayor's job.
No, but this is what they're doing running for governor. This is what they're doing running for mayor. They want to get elected based on how much they hate Donald Trump because they have no answers to any of the actual problems facing those cities or states.
I promise to bring integrity.
Lee's campaign also released a new social media ad this week talking about her years of fighting and representing Oakland on the federal level. Business owner Derek Johnson says not all recall supporters are against Lee. He says many people who voted...
I would just say most of them are.
I would hope so.
But it also depends on turnout, and turnout for a special one-issue election could be fairly low.
And I would assume there are some people who just found Sheng to be personally obnoxious, who agree with her policies. I guess that's the pond that Barbara Lee is fishing in.
Oh, there's definitely some of that going on.
He says many people who voted to oust Tao are supporting Lee.
I'm supporting the Congresswoman because I feel she's the best candidate right now for what we need. Because we need somebody that can restore respectability back to that seat after it's been so damaged, respectability back to our city, and I feel she's the only...
How can she do that?
See, this is the type of guy I was talking about. All of his problems with Sheng had nothing to do with her failed policies. He would double and triple down on those things.
And I feel she's the only candidate in this race right now that can do that.
Tatum disagrees, saying Oakland doesn't have a unity problem, it's got a crime problem.
You're damn right it does.
No kidding.
Who else do we go call Superman?
He plans to vote for Lauren Taylor next month.
I love my city, and I know that with smart, small steps, we can slowly get there.
Early voting starts on Monday. The elections office will also be mailing out the ballots as well, so people should be getting those ballots sometime next week.
Daw, thank you. It is not just the mayor's office up for grabs next month. Voters will also choose a new city council member for District 2, which includes neighborhoods like Chinatown, East Lake, and San Antonio. There's also a measure to raise the city's sales tax by ½ cent.
Oh, that'll do it.
Because that's what they're lacking up there. More money.
Well, they are broke.
Yeah, they're broke because of their own stupid decisions.
Like, don't waste our time. We have a whole city to run.
All right, we'll see if the city of Oakland is ready to elect Sheng 2.0.
The election season ends on April 15th, and we will have all the results as soon as they come in.